All right. Welcome to the BXG Podcast. This is episode 103 on your dial. This time on this episode, the end of the weekend hug here, we're talking about comedy, and mostly I would say comedy and movies, but I wouldn't mind just stretching out in other genres, other things that we're getting into. We always talk about meeting at the nexus of the universe, and to me, comedy ended at the nexus of the universe when Neighbors came out, and that was comedy. That was, to me, the last true great comedy that made a good amount of money and was still funny. And so I was thinking about this, and we talk about comedy a lot on here, and I get mad about things. We brought up Ricky Gervais a few times about how his comedy. Some people get mad about it, but to get into this, the early 2000s may have been the peak for comedy in movies. That trend, which actually started with There's Something About Mary in the late 90s, brought on comedy classics like Zoolander, Wedding Crashers, Step Brothers, Superbad, and The Hangover, just to name a few. A really great decade. I mean, you could go on with that list of movies forever. But since then, a few comedies have come along and certainly brought the laughs, like Bridesmaids and Neighbors. But it has been a while since a true laugh out loud comedy has come along and not only made us laugh, but was also very successful at the box office. Now, I know COVID aside, but there's still, even with those, there hasn't been a lot of comedies. So to me, to start off, Brenton, and I'll start with this first question. What do you think, of comedies now? What is your just overall opinion on where that direction has gone? Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I just have lost my sense of humor, but where are you at with comedy and movies right now, 2022?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because I can't tell you the last movie that I saw where it was like, this is a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm over here kind of like, searching movies for like, oh man, what year did this come out? What year did that come out? And the most recent comedy that has come out that I was able to quickly look up was Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
2011.
Neighbors came on, I think, a little bit after that. And I really like Neighbors. Neighbors 2 is good. It's not as great, but I think like Neighbors as its own thing. And it's just weird to me. And that's a good spot to say you don't know. I think is actually better than to say like one thing or the other, because it's just, I don't know what really officially stopped it. I don't know. Like if the gross
Cancel
out
culture.
Stuff, I guess it's cancel culture.
I mean, in part, nobody wants to make anything that's going to offend people. So like, here's a list of recent comedies per just Google search. Okay. Okay. The Bubble.
Okay.
Jackass Forever, obviously that's kind of
okay.
That's
really
that's in that wheelhouse though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see what you think about this as a comedy. Spider-Man No Way Home.
Nope.
Okay.
Not a comedy.
No. Okay. We also have Ghostbusters Afterlife, which
it's not a comedy.
Studio 666.
Yeah.
Scream 5. These are all again labeled comedies.
This is funny how they're listed as comedies.
Yeah. I'm just trying to
paying off the industry so they can be like the number one ranked comedy. I just remember that.
Yeah. Medea. There's a lot of Medeas.
Okay. Remember in like 2005, in between when these funny movies would come out, and there would just be like one of these random like family stupid comedies that would come out. I don't even know what to think of. And it's like the number one comedy in America.
Yeah, right.
And then you're like, well, Wedding Crashers is coming out in 2 weeks, so good luck with that. Like,
yeah. Okay, so here you go. The last comedy that I knew was a comedy that I watched was Coming to America. Second, the most recent, the sequel. Most recent,
right. Coming to the number 2.
Coming to number 2. Yeah.
And it's
fine.
It's fine. So this has been bugging me for a while because number one, both of us love those middle 2000s movies. I mean, we saw Wedding Crashers together. We knew that Will Ferrell was actually going to make an appearance. Yes. And we were the only two people in the theater laughing about it when he shows up in the shadows. And we're losing it. I mean, you and I were gone. And then it actually happens and all this good stuff. And there's just nothing like that anymore. Like the movies we get excited about are never comedies. And they used to be the only movies I got excited about, and now we're at this point where I don't know. And you said cancel culture and not wanting to offend. And to me, and this is just kind of going, are we, and I understand some people, I guess need to be canceled for other things, but to just offend people, I mean, that's weird to me. I just, well, everyone is so soft at this point. I know we live in like the softness of America now, where like every single kid gets an award and every single kid makes a team. We don't cut anybody. We don't do all these things. And it's just, that bugs me a lot. I mean, the wussification of America is something that just really bites my ass. I just cannot stand it because it doesn't make anybody tougher. And it's like, if you can't take a joke, like the way that we treat each other as kids, as teenagers was ridiculous, but it was awesome. And like, whatever, you're supposed to be able to take a few like knocks and just for everyone to think like, we can't worry about offending a certain person. Now, I understand like a way of not offending races or something like that, but just to offend like little bits of things here and there. I mean, like you said with Ricky Gervais, I think he's a perfect example. Like he doesn't care. He just keeps going, and there needs to be more of that. So continue, Brian. I'm sorry. I didn't.
So I think a couple points is, first of all, I would say even that this kind of era of comedy really started back in the mid 90s with movies like Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, sure.
And then it kind of continued on, like you had said, Something About Mary. And then there's all like the frat pack movies, Old School, Ricky Bobby, Anchorman, obviously. Yeah. And then it kind of transitioned into, we got this period of the rated R comedy. Mm-hmm. And that's where like The Hangover kind of comes in. And, it took us to like the next level. But then I really feel like studios have been they've become so risk averse because I think that that's maybe a better way of putting it than like the whole cancel culture thing, because I think it's just risk aversion, because, as some of the things that we talked about on the Friday episode that have been announced at CinemaCon, everything gets a sequel because it's safe.
Right.
There's a reason why there's been 27 Marvel movies, because they print money and they're safe. People are going to go see them. Right. And those are considered comedies in some ways. I mean, obviously we just had Spider-Man on that list because they have funny moments in them, but I haven't, like I said, Coming to America. And then what you said, which is the idea of nothing's just a straight comedy anymore. Everything is it's a subgenre of something else. Comedy adventure, comedy fantasy, comedy horror, comedy romance, romantic comedies. There's nothing that's just like, this is going to be insane. Even, we just reviewed Massive Talent. That was a romantic action comedy.
Right.
It's not, you know what I mean? It's funny. There's funny moments. There's moments that are absolutely ridiculous and hilarious. But that's not what that movie was. And there's not, I didn't see any of the Dumb and Dumber sequels or prequels or anything like that. There's funny moments. I think it's like the family comedy is where you're seeing comedy now, because you have movies like Jungle Cruise, Sonic, this Turning Red movie. I didn't see it, but it's listed as a comedy. And then you have like the whole, like the Ghostbusters things. The two originals were comedies.
Right.
As much as I love Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I love it, it is a action sci-fi comedy. Right. You know what I mean? Mel Brooks isn't out here making movies anymore. And there's a problem with that.
Yeah. And that was like my thing is, you have The Hangover behind you. Yeah. And to me, it's the last one where there's no redemptive arc. there's nothing redeeming about these people.
Any
They
of
go
them.
in the same,
Right.
nothing changes with these people. And that's what you kind of need. Like even Wedding Crashers has a little bit of that redemption.
Sure.
And even though the first like 80% of Wedding Crashers is pure insanity and makes me laugh, I can watch that first 80%, turn it off whenever it becomes like, oh, I need to get to Owen Wilson needs to like change his life and be actually
And be
completely
fine.
happy.
Yeah.
See Chaz and then I'm done. Honestly, that's almost how I feel.
Yeah. Wedding Crashers is a romantic comedy.
Right. And it's like
You
one
know
of those
what I mean?
things where it's just, it isn't, and then it becomes one at the very, like the first 80% is like, yeah, there's romance involved, but for the most part, it's just ridiculous. And The Hangover, it's one of those things where I went back and watched it, I don't know, about 6 months ago. And I was like, is this going to play the same? Am I going to laugh as much? The first couple of times I saw it, I may have laughed more because we just don't have these kind of movies anymore. And yeah, there's some offensive things. I'm not going to say there aren't some offensive things, but I guarantee that like anyone that was in that movie was just like, you know what, you're kind of in on the joke, and they offend everybody. That's kind of the thing too, is that movie attacks kind of everyone. And maybe that's hopefully where we go. I mean, all these things kind of turn around. We go ages without like really good things, and then something comes back around. That's what I'm hoping. I don't know who's going to do it. And that's kind of what's leading me back to this question is like, is there anyone that you could see could, maybe write a movie or, I think that's probably the best way to look at it is like, who do you think could write a movie that could kind of bring us back to this ridiculousness?
Let me answer your
that
question in saying that I feel like there's actually a logical explanation for why comedies have shifted to from a straight comedy to comedy subgenres. Okay. And I think the reason is because comedy in and of itself is best enjoyed in the company of others.
Yeah.
And as a society, we have drifted towards being more isolatory, especially with COVID. And I can watch things that are funny to me, but still not laugh. They're just funny in my head.
Sure.
And I'll give you the perfect example is we were the only two people in the theater when we saw Nacho Libre.
Sure. Oh,
and
yeah.
you nearly did you nearly did a front flip over the seats. But if I'm not there, you probably don't do that because comedy is most enjoyed in the presence of others. And that's why I think that the real shift over the last 10 years is you don't get comedy movies, but you know what you get a lot of? Stand-up specials. There's more stand-up specials on Netflix, Prime, etc. tenfold over a comedy movie, a comedic movie. And I think that that's where people have kind of gone to get their comedy is it's sort of, I don't want to say a resurgence because it's always been there, with Seinfeld and Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor, George Carlin, whatever. But I think that because there are all these specials now, that stand up as a comedy genre is just more accessible. And the reality of it is because you have guys like you said, Ricky Gervais, Anthony Jeselnik, Hannibal Buress. Those are a couple of my favorites. They're going to do their show and everybody in the audience knows what they're going to get. And so they show up knowing that Anthony Jeselnik is going to tell fucked up jokes. They show up knowing Ricky Gervais is going to make fun of all of them. They show up knowing that, these guys are going to take the piss. And because that's so tailored to your personal preference, like I'm not going to take somebody to a movie on a lark, whether it's Melissa or friends or whatever. And it's something that I think is funny, but they don't think is funny because then they're just miserable. But I can sit at home and watch a Ricky Gervais stand-up special for an hour and nearly shit myself.
Right. I think for me too, and this is, and I agree with you to some degree on that, but I'll take it in a different direction, is when you go to the movie theater, you're not looking at your phone.
Right.
And so when you're at home watching a comedy, sometimes that build up to the actual punchline is so important that if you're on your phone, you just don't catch the joke.
Yeah.
And in a stand-up special, that everything's a build up. You know that. And so you can still be on your phone, but you can passively listen for the build up, things like that. And maybe that's part of the problem, but it's only been, I say it's only been, the world hasn't been that long of a time that we've been in this age of COVID and things like this. And now people are going to the movies, and Jackass did pretty well, all things considered, for what it was. And while that's not what I'm talking about with comedy, that made me happy that people went. So I didn't see it. I don't know why, because I know I would love it. And I've heard it's actually like really good. But that's like the concern for me. This is where I think, someone like, I feel like we just need to get back to like someone like Seth Rogen needs to just go back, get into the lab, and do something that doesn't matter. I'd love to say Judd Apatow, but he's past that. We just know that he's just aged himself out.
We just watched The Bubble.
Yeah,
it was not great.
Bubble, and he's just, I don't think that's in him anymore for whatever reason. He is going political, whatever. But I think we need someone like that. If it's someone we don't know about, that would be great. I mean, I think, there's people make fun of SNL all the time, but like people that write for SNL any single person that writes for SNL is way funnier than any friend you've ever had, and as much as like a lot of us think we're really funny, and being an SNL writer for me was like one of the things I wanted to do when I got into writing as a profession. That was like one of the top tier jobs for me, probably top 3 job. I wanted to be maybe not a head writer, but at least a writer at SNL. And that's the thing, is like even someone like that, because I miss movies like Hot Rod, with Andy Samberg. Even though those movies don't, make a lot of money, they end up being cult classics. They're really funny, and it makes me sad. Maybe Andy Samberg has something left in the can with that. Palm Springs is a pretty funny movie, but once again, it's a romantic comedy. Do you ever yearn, Britton? Do you ever yearn for something?
Constantly.
And that's what I just want, that straight up dumb comedy.
Yeah,
and,
sure. Well, and that's the thing,
really
is who used to give us the dumb comedy?
Will Ferrell
and Adam McKay.
McKay.
Adam McKay has kind of graduated to this sort of comedy, but it's going to be like a smart kind of political sort of thing. And we're not just going to get Ricky Bobby, you know what I mean? Or Wedding Crashers or Step, you know what I mean? Like the original Anchorman.
Yeah.
Right. Because the original Anchorman was just, we're going to get 5 hilarious people in a room. We're going to give them a loose outline to work off of. And then we're going to take the funniest take.
Right.
It's just improv sketch,
improv sketch, and nice Greg way, but a Brenton way.
Ooh.
So what we thought about is doing just a couple, little Whose Line Is Anyway kind of thing, paying homage to something that I think, you and I both really, really enjoyed in our life. Grew up, with the Ryan Stiles is always my guy, but a little improv. Now, I will say, I consider myself a pretty funny person, and I think Brent's a pretty funny person. He comes off, I like dry humor. Brenton is dry humor. I'm more of like theatrical, and I would call myself more of a Sebastian Maniscalco. What
Italian restaurant do you get that at?
I just mean with the outlandishness. I'm going to be a little more extrovert, and Brenton's more of the Mitch Hedberg, and 2 great comedians, RIP to Mitch Hedberg. But
sure.
So Brenton, why don't you set me up first? I think because you're the one that presented this.
Yeah, I know, and then I didn't write anything down.
Oh, that's okay. That's
terrible.
Okay. Just set me anything.
All right, here we go. Here's what I'm going to do.
Just to let everybody know, just to steal an old one from Whose Line, because it's one of the great. Yeah. It's one of the greats.
I'm not singing. Okay.
A lot of singing. What's something, that you can say to a dog that you can't say to your wife?
Oh, no.
So just let that roll, everyone. Hopefully we didn't offend anyone. That's a good old Whose Line Anyway, 8:00 on Sunday evenings on ABC back in the day, everyone.
Yeah. A lot like a place that I spend a lot of time now, where the rules are made up and the points don't matter. Okay. You are I'm gonna let you choose a holiday mascot to be on Criminal Trial.
I will be the Easter Bunny. Easter Bunny
Uh,
coming right off. Actually, it still is the Easter season for all those celebrating.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing improv here. I think he's getting into character.
I am. Okay.
So it's going to be more visual, especially with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this probably isn't going to play as well with the pod, but you know,
it is what it is. For those listening, thank you. I have my hands on my head representing ears.
sure.
I don't understand. I was just on my rabbit run and you caught me and a hair in my mouth. Sorry about that. My hair in my mouth. Yeah, I have big ears, but all I could hear was my order coming in. I couldn't hear the crime going on behind me. I don't know why I'm here. I wasn't involved. I just got my cottontail. Nothing. I'm not doing anything illegal here right now. I got to bounce. I got to bounce real quick. All right. Oh yeah. Sometimes you got to bounce. Okay. I have an alibi. As any rabbit, I had to mate. I constantly mate. I'm a rabbit. So I'm constantly mating, and there's no way I could have committed this crime. I don't know why you're doing this. Wait, I got to go bounce. Bouncing, and I got to go mate and go back. Mate. All right. See, look at how much time. I don't have time to commit these crimes. I don't have any time to commit these crimes. How dare you? How dare you do this to a hare, a bunny? Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
All right. That was terrible.
Hey, I didn't know what was going on. I'm not Ryan Stiles. I never said I was improv. I'm a writer, Brenton.
Sure.
Okay, Brenton, you are playing a Jim Cantori type for the Weather Channel.
I don't know.
The Weather Channel guy. He always goes out in these storms, and you're just there. You're on the seashores of Miami, and a hurricane is coming in, Brenton. Hurricane is coming in.
This is one straight from. I remember. Who's the bald guy?
Oh,
the little guy.
Colin.
Montgomery. Yeah, he did this exact skit.
Well, yeah, and it's a funny skit. So it's like, but you're you're there, Brenton. I'll be the anchor. So, Brenton, we know the storm is coming in. How are things in beautiful Dade County?
A lot of wind. A lot of wind out here. It seems to be behind me, as you can see. It seems to be raining. Dolphins and whales are being sucked in from the beaches here in South.
Oh my gosh, the rain is
Carolina. The rain.
Do you have an umbrella? Is it coming? Oh.
I don't use an umbrella. I want the viewer to be able to experience the rain as if they were here. I want them to use their empathy to understand what is happening.
Oh my gosh, Brenton, there's a wave coming in. Watch out. Brenton.
Yeah.
A wave. It's coming in. Oh, we're
coming in from center field.
We're losing connectivity with Brenton.
I don't know what's happening. That wasn't.
No, so
I'm
glad we did this. And the reason why I'm glad we did this is because comedy's hard. And,
it is, yeah. Especially improv.
Neither one, we obviously didn't send this to each other, which I think is kind of the point. And go back and watch whose line it is anyway, and everybody. But that may be also part of it. And when you brought this up as my topic, I wanted to kind of bring this up. And when you said this, I'm like, well, neither one of us is going to be that good at this because A, it's super hard. B, we don't, we're not designed for that. Like I said, I'm a writer, but also comedy is just so hard to do. And when you see people who have done it, like Adam McKay, when you brought him up, Judd Apatow, people who known to do it, I think it's a muscle that you need to work. And if you don't, it kind of goes away. And to me, that's a concern. But that's comedies come back.
I really would say it's okay. Comedy is the only thing that you have to have an audience to practice.
Yeah.
You can sit in your room and play guitar. You can go outside and shoot a basketball and count how many times it goes through, but there's no way to simulate whether that joke's going to land.
Right.
So, and that's why you get, like, if you live in a big city like New York or Chicago or LA, and you just hang out at these comedy clubs, you might not know who's going to show up on a random Tuesday.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the next thing you know, it's, you know, you're at a comedy club in New York City on a Tuesday in February, and it's supposed to be just like open mic night, and then Jerry Seinfeld comes in and does 15 minutes.
I can't even imagine. Right.
And so, like, I think that's the thing. And I know we've centered this around movies and, you know, a little bit of stand up and stuff like that, but I don't think that we have the attention span anymore for a comedy movie, because there is so much setup to a good punchline. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I just think as a society, everything is, well, I'll tell you what, I got two, like, I'm going to correlate this a little bit to music. And we had Guillermo on a couple weeks ago to do the Chili Peppers thing. And we talked about, is rock music relevant? And then he asked that same question to his co-host, Austin, on Tournament Style, because they were talking about him coming on. And he said, do you think that rock music or music is relevant? And Austin said, no, it's relevant in the sense that if it's a TikTok video. And here's the example that proves him right on that. Nobody gave a shit about Fleetwood Mac until that doofus was riding on a skateboard drinking cranberry juice for 10
nobody
seconds.
Gives a shit now about Fleetwood Mac, is what you should say.
Well, yeah, obviously back in, yeah. But it charted.
It charted.
It charted because of that 10-second clip. And I think that is
cranberry cocktail.
Right. I think that is where we're at as a society. Is you can't expect people to pay attention to you being funny for an hour and a half when you have, you know, the Island Boys being funny for 10 seconds on TikTok.
You're not wrong. And I listen to, most of the things I listen to are generally geared towards being funny. Mm-hmm. And there is something to be said about what it takes to be funny. And also, I think the hardest thing now is to, like, we talked about being offended, but what we both consider funny, you and I have pretty similar tastes in what we consider funny, I would say. Sure. I don't think there's too many discrepancies on when we say that, but there are definitely people who just don't like the comedians that we like. Sure. And is what it is. And so to find that middle ground on what people actually think is funny is always really tough. That's why I thought the improv was important, because it's hard to do. Yeah. And, you know, I would like to see it come back for so many reasons, but I think the other reason is that we're at such a weird point in this time and culture that just have a movie that comes out that everyone just agrees is funny, and it costs $15 million to make, and it looks like it costs $15 million to make, and nobody maybe there's like 4 offensive jokes in the entire movie, but it spreads them out. It makes fun of everybody that's in the movie, whoever it is in it. That's what we need. I would love to see it happen, because I think there are things that we really have liked, you know, in recent years, TV shows or whatever. But to see that as a movie is just something I think that really needs to hit. Like, you know, that is what it is for me. It's just, I just want to see it happen, because it feels like so long ago. And when you're like, I'm, you know, going to be turning. Today is actually my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday!
With the show out. So
on the posting date.
On the posting of the show.
Well, happy birthday to you when this posts.
Yeah. So, you know, I'll be 37, and it feels like, you know, I was in my 20s the last time a movie like this really, really hit.
Bridesmaids.
And that's crazy.
11 years ago.
Right. And that's crazy to me that, like, I was still living in Pennsylvania. I mean, this is like, you know, where things are at. That's a long time. So I hope someone does it. I will say that if you're looking for funny Tournament Style, if you're looking for just straight funny, you'll get a good laugh, everybody. I mean, they are really, really talented at doing that. And you know, we have our funny moments. We're not intentionally trying to be funny most of the time. It just happens sometimes because of the way we interact. But if you are, you know, when you listen to this, if you're watching this, let us know what your thoughts are on comedy, anything like that. We would love that. Anything you can give us, we would be totally down for. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's a movie out there that came along and I don't know anything about it, and it's so funny. But Brent, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just on that, it's going back to it's the comedy subgenre, man. And because you have like the stoner comedies, which I don't find particularly funny. I never got into like Pineapple Express, anything like that. And I like a good smart comedy with movies like the early Wes Anderson movies, like Royal Tenenbaums and Life Aquatic and stuff like that. But I don't like comedy needs to be a little bit lowbrow. You know what I mean? Like Wes Anderson is a little bit too highbrow for most people. And I made the joke that at some point we're maybe going to do like live shows and we might do a watch along, and we're going to make Dallas do a watch along of Royal Tenenbaums with us, because I know he hates it. You know what I mean? It's just one of those movies that you have to, it's an acquired taste. It's like certain cheeses basically. But I think that we can all agree that the world in general needs a little bit more humor.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, when some people try to deliver it, they get slapped in the face by Will Smith. And, you know,
you're not wrong. I mean, that's actually a perfect example of that. I mean, like, that is actually a perfect example.
Yeah. And I was like, we talked about it, I think, shortly after it happened, where like the Will Smith slap jokes got not funny immediately because it was so oversaturated.
Right.
But now that it's kind of calmed down, I think that joke slaps.
Oh, it's funny again. Yeah, it's still funny. It comes back to being funny.
Right.
And that's a good joke that you made.
Somebody sent me a Will Smith joke the other day, and my reaction was, "You're still making Will Smith jokes, and Amber Heard shit in Johnny Depp's bed." Let's move on.
So I mean, like I said, if you have any comments or you think there's a movie that both of us need to watch that's come out in like, let's say the past 5 years,
5 years, yeah.
That maybe I'm missing, because it happens. It can definitely happen. Let us know in the comments, but the biggest thing for us is like and subscribe down there, ring that bell, tell your friends, tell your families,
tell 10 friends,
tell 10 friends, tell 10 moms.
Tell 10 moms. Tell 70. Tell 72 virgins.
Then tell your 10 moms. Tell the 10 moms. You got 100 moms going.
10 squared.
100 moms. All moms know 100 moms. So tell those 100 moms. Get them on Sign Up Genius to sign them up to listen to this show. Whatever you can do.
What is Sign Up Genius?
It's something I do for school. I just had to throw it in there. Bam. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. Do all those things for us. Comment on YouTube too, and all that stuff. We want to be on Rotten Tomatoes. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Apple reviews 5-star, or at least 4-star.
Apple reviews. Yeah, at least 4-star.
4 to 5 stars.
Yeah.
Take care, friends.
Thanks for listening and watching.